morning, everybody. Psalm 106. We're getting close to the weekend. We're gonna get out here and we're gonna faith the rest of this week with Psalm 106. And actually, I think I'm gonna do today and tomorrow out of Psalm 106. We'll see what happens, but I think that's what I'm gonna do. First of all, today, again, it's another psalm of joy and praise to God. And so he starts it off. He says, praise the Lord. He says, give thanks to the Lord because he is good. His mercy endures forever. That's kind of a common way to the psalmist opens. Give thanks to the Lord because he's good and because his mercy endures forever. He says, who can utter the mighty acts of the Lord and who can declare all his praise? You know, it's amazing because the last two psalms, at least, were him trying to declare all of the great things that God has done. In Psalm 104, we talked about creation. And if you read it, he talked about how magnificent in his mighty works in creation. And then yesterday in Psalm 105, we talked about how, God keeps his promises and he keeps his word and his mighty acts. And he went through a lot of the mighty things that how God, things seemed to go wrong, even though he had made this promise to Abraham and how ultimately he was faithful to that promise. And so here, and again, if you read this one, he's going to refer again to what he did and how he delivered Jerusalem and not Jerusalem, how he delivered Israel from Egypt and those kind of things. And we'll get into that a little bit tomorrow. But today he's saying, give praise to God. His mercy endures forever. And then he, just asked the question in verse 2, who can even utter the mighty acts of God? Who can even say everything that's great that's God done? I mean, how can we even do that? And who can do that? I'm reminded of the Gospel of John. The Gospel of John, towards the end of it, in chapter 20, at the end of chapter 20, the last couple of verses, 30 and 31, John just says, Jesus did a whole lot of things. And I'm giving you the Brother Keith version. He said, Jesus did a whole lot of things. He said, I'm just writing down the things that he did that are going to help you to know who he is. And then he actually finishes his letter in his gospel, in chapter 21, verse 25. And he just says, there are also many other things that Jesus did, which if they were written one by one, I suppose that even the world itself could not contain the books that would be written. He said, if I were to try to write everything that Jesus did, the world couldn't hold the books. And so I know it's difficult to declare the mightiness and the greatness of God. So in verse 3, he just simply says this, blessed are those who keep justice and he who does righteousness at all times. You see, it's about letting our lives declare his glory. And I think it's Micah chapter 6, verse 8. He says, he has shown you, O man, what is good and what the Lord requires, but to do justly, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. Yeah, what God really wants from us is a life that's transformed. One of the best ways that we can give praise to God for who he is by living a life in the way that he wants it, in the way that he wants us to live. Listen, I'm going to hurry up and move on just for a second. He says, remember me, O Lord, in verse 4, with the favor you have toward your people. Visit me with your salvation so that I may see the benefit of your chosen ones, so that I may rejoice in the gladness of your nation. So you may be sitting there saying, well, I really haven't seen any marvelous, wonderful works of God in my life. You know what? I want you to start asking for them. I want you to do just like he says. I want you to ask God to have favor on you, to turn his favor toward you. Ask him to put you in a place where you can see the benefits that he has placed on his people so that you can experience that joy and that gladness. Listen, our church is praying for this community. We are praying God's blessing and God's favor upon this community. And so now what you need to do is you need to begin to take hold of that, and you need to ask God to turn his face toward you and to have, you say, well, it sounds so selfish. It does sound selfish, right? But that's, if it's good enough for David, it's good enough for us. He says, remember me with the favor you have toward your people. Visit me with your salvation so that I can see the benefits of your chosen ones. Ask God to come to your life. Ask God to do a mighty work around you. Ask God to show you how wonderful he is so that your mouth and so that your life can declare to the world the mighty works of God. Hey, God bless you guys. Psalm 106, that's really just the first 5 verses, but use those and get out there in faith today. Love you guys. Bye.